can be displayed in the form of sexual objectification, possessiveness, and predatory behavior. There's also a dangerous sense of entitlement that comes from the narrative saying that the more masculine you are, the more entitled you are to respect, power, a job, and sex.
Well, I don't think that's something that's given to men. I think that's just the way people look at you. So you're a powerful person. You exude power, whatever. Let's define power as. You're confident, you're successful, you don't get flustered easy. That could be a man or a woman. You'll be like, wow, that person's very impressive. I don't know that that's generated around the sex that I'm aware of. You guys tell me what you think.
When women disagree or say no, aggression, anger, or violence can follow because they're denied what is owed to this masculine sense of power. This toxic sense of entitlement contributes to the rampant rape culture in this country.
All right, let's stop for a second. When you say, you could say rampant rapes, but rape culture, I think, is a problem. I've never once said to my daughters growing up, hey, it's okay if you're raped, you know, like that's part of the culture. Now, they have these buzzwords. I get it. That's the way things work. You got to have a buzzword to get people interested. There is no culture of rape. There are people that are rapists, and they've always been out there, and they get prosecuted, found guilty, go to jail. Saying there's a culture, it takes away from the real problem. Just makes it into a norm, which people go, huh? Like, I'm not getting this. Normal people like you and me.
Toxic masculinity can also lead to homophobia because the attraction to men is considered feminine and therefore a threat to straight masculinity. Transphobia towards trans women occurs when they are wrongly perceived as men pretending to be women.
Well, there's no transphobia, she says, when men are pretending to be women. I could care less as long as it's not a relationship. And the advertisement was, I'm a woman. Everything's saying woman. You get down to the deed and you unwrap it and it's not a woman, you're going to be pissed. Are you transphobic? No. You want to be with a man or somebody with a penis? No.
Women. Trans women, especially trans women of color, are more likely to experience violence, often from the men who date them and feel their straight masculinity was diminished because they were with a man. Trans men also suffer from the perception of diluting masculinity by being women pretending to be men. It can also impact men who date trans people because other men might shame them for dating a trans person. Lesbians and bisexual.
I tell you what, these people could make it complicated. If someone commits a crime, they're violent, whether it's trans, straight, whatever other category you want to put in there. They're a violent person. That's what they are. We don't have to put it into some little neat basket that further segment each other to further put us into groups where we don't have any commonalities. I don't find people like this. However, this has more and more become the norm when you talk to people in their early 20s. They would say there is a rape culture. There is a patriarchy, and it's keeping me down. What that does, now they got an excuse why they're not doing well. So it's painful to watch this sometimes.
Women can also be victims of toxic outlash for denying men their entitlement to women's bodies and attention. Toxic masculinity can also appear within the LGBT community. Shorthand like mask for mask or no femmes can be exclusionary to more feminine presenting gay men. It's okay to be attracted to certain people, but don't devalue others in the process. Within lesbian and queer women's spaces, butch or more masculine presenting women can perform toxic behavior.
The woman in the video has segmented this so much that it just gets your mind confused and you're walking around in a haze going, what the hell did I just listen to? I had a friend of mine send me this video. I'm beginning to take it personal. Am I racist? Let's take a look at this video.
Am I what?
A racist?
Am I racist?
Yeah.
I should hope not.
What kind of question is that? I wasn't expecting to get asked.
I don't think racists think they're racist, right? It's usually how that goes. Such a loaded question in today's world. What does racism even mean? It used to be if you really had a bone to pick with someone of another race. It wasn't just, you said something by mistake. And I'm not talking derogatory words. You said something, you felt uncomfortable. Now if you say to a white person, for example, do you want mayonnaise on your sandwich? Is that racist against a white person? The webs we weave with this are so complex.
And I'm like, no?
No.
No.
No. Hell no.
That is a multi-layered question.
Well, let's get into it.
I say the N-word when I'm by myself and listening to rap songs.
I've seen a black man,
All right, so if you sing a song along with a song, right? You're singing along with NWA and you say the N word. I don't know how you could think you're racist. You're just singing along. You're not like consciously saying something derogatory. You're just, playing along, right? That used to be a thing. Now, no more, buddy.
Walking towards me and I cross the street, but I'm always in my head like, please know that this is because you're a man, not because you're black.
Are you racist?
Oh, God. Imagine being that concerned. She's worried that she thought she crossed the street because he was black. She crossed the street because he's a man. Maybe she's concerned for her well-being. It's late at night. She was told to do that, just being safe. We shouldn't have to be at this point, but we are. So I like to see these videos because they shed light on some of the ridiculousness that people feel, especially when you're around people of other races. You just tend to get along. You don't have these weird strife and have to make excuses for everything you say.
I'm not racist, but I'm a server, so I know races. How do I word it without sounding racist?
I have definitely.
Oh, she's a server and she knows races, so I don't know what exactly that means, but I could read between the lines. I've heard that certain women of the street have a preference in the race they choose. Why? I don't know. I've heard that from a buddy of mine who was in that business. So I'll leave it at that.
Like stereotype people before.
Just like a stereotype.
The stereotypes.
Like what?
White people smell, they can't cook, they can't dance.
Asian people can't drive.
African American men, they have something that's bigger than everybody else.
I was just talking about with my friend.
It's funny. Stereotypes, or as they're describing it, racism, it's not good unless it's positive, right? Like if you say he mentioned that African American men have large units. Well, that's a stereotype. Is it racism? I don't think so. But if it was something negative, right, they'd be all over it. That would be like the end of the world because we've lost our sense of equilibrium, balance, right?
And setting her up with my other friend, and I'm like, but he's Asian, so he probably has a small penis. And I was like, fuck, why did I say that? Why did I think that?
They just kind of pop up. I tell myself to shut up.
Are you racist?
Only when I'm driving.
Are you
Only when I'm driving. Maybe sexist, right? Maybe sexist. I don't know. I've seen racists of all shades. Obviously, the bigger the majority, the more you're going to see it as a total number. Point being, if there's 90% are white people and they look at another race and say something derogatory, it's going to seem like more white people are racist. There just happens to be more white people, right? Sometimes it gets a little tricky, especially in today's world. There is no discussion of it without people losing their shit.
Jokingly.
I tell racist jokes.
I like to make a lot of jokes. Sometimes they're race jokes.
I do make a lot of racist jokes.
When I was younger, I'd make a lot of jokes about it, but I realized what are these jokes actually saying, and what am I communicating about people through the way I choose to make people laugh.
Are you racist?
No.
No, not even a little bit.
I wouldn't say that I'm racist, nor I'm capable of it.
Didn't anyone tell you black people cannot be racist?
Black people can't be racist.
And why is that?
Racism is an institutionalized thing. I don't think black people have set up institutions powerful enough to oppress other people.
I think I can be prejudiced.
That's a new learned definition. So you can't be racist if you're not in charge. Because you can look all around the world and there's racism against certain classes or races in the society. It may be black people that were quote unquote the racist in certain society. It may be tribal, right? If you're from a different tribe, the Houthis versus I can't remember the other tribe, but is it racism? Is it classism? Is it tribalism? I think it's probably tribalism, right? People that are different. Race plays a part in it, but I think the modern day racism as we used to think of it years ago, where someone looked down on blacks, for example, because of their skin color, I just don't see it. And I'm not a young kid anymore. I don't see it the same way that it was perceived when I was young. Now, the definition changed. Understanding that, what do you guys think about it constructively in the comments?
But I'm not racist.
I'm prejudiced.
I feel like I'm biased when it comes to white people, honestly, because I don't tend to give them the benefit of the doubt because they come into this world with so much privilege, and I need to work on that.
And black.
So she's at a disadvantage already. She's saying white people come to the world with so much privilege. So she already thinks she has less privilege. So she's already taking away from what her skill set is, what she's capable of. She's saying, well, I didn't get this because a white person got it. Instead of saying, you need to work harder next time, I would say, if I was a black person, that'd really piss me off, because then if you look, I am successful. Let's say I'm a black Clarence Thomas, for example. He commented that he thought that affirmative action took away from what he did graduating from Yale, because he looked like an affirmative action hire, right? So he didn't like it. And I think the folks I've known that have been minorities or women, people look to it and sometimes say, well, they just got hired because, you know why, right? It takes away from someone's skills, which is a shame, especially someone who's worked hard no matter what their race.
Will be racist?
I'm sure black people can be racist. I think anybody can be racist.
Being a light-skinned person growing up in Kenya, there's definitely a colorism issue going on where darker-skinned people are usually looked at differently than lighter-skinned people.
If you have like hate towards like a certain group of...
Now, if you look towards Africa, like he said in Kenya, and there is a difference between lighter-skinned people and darker-skinned people. Look in Jamaica, lighter-skinned blacks were looked down upon than darker-skinned blacks. So I'm going to call it tribalism more than anything. Now, am I saying there's not racism? Of course I'm not. But it exists all around the world. And I think the U.S. has made big strides in trying to improve it. Now, are you racist? I think if you hold ill intent towards somebody, that would be racism. Like you feel like all these people have to be the same. You may have an initial judgment, like a snap judgment. Like if you got hit by a red truck, you may go, I don't like red trucks. If it was a purple person, you may go, I don't know about these purple people. Then you're open-minded, right? That would make you not racist. So you go, well, they're okay, right?
People, you are racist.
I think my dad's a racist.
My father was pretty racist.
I had some family that are racist.
I do have relatives that are definitely racist towards Japanese. I also have relatives that are racist towards black people.
Like, do you ever challenge them, or are you like, Grandma, come on?
Nah, I let her have it.
Are you racist?
No.
No.
Oh, no, never. No.
How do you know?
Just know that you don't hate people.
I feel like you know, right? Like if you have to tell people that you're not racist, that to me is a great sign that you're racist.
Are you racist?
No. I mean, if I am, please someone tell me, because that...
No one wants to admit they're racist, but I've seen people who are adamantly say they're not racist, and they do place big judgment on certain things, right? They won't go to certain areas. They're concerned about the way somebody looks, so they do pass judgment, maybe on certain races. No one in this group wants to think they're racist. And is it really racism? Is it just human nature? They're profiling, you want to say, like the red truck example? I don't know. It seems like this word has gotten really used for not the right purpose for African Americans in particular.
So disappointing.
Are you racist?
I've been told I am. I was like kind of getting upset because I was tired of hearing about if you're white and Christian, you're racist and you get away with everything. And I was like, how can you say that?
Yeah, I'm racist because I'm a white person. I think.
See, that right there just pisses off people that are white. I'm racist because I'm white, that she said that. Well, that means that, am I racist because I'm white? She lumps me in with her. That's really what the backlash has been, I think, recently, where people get really frustrated with the process. Well, I'm racist because I'm white and I have privilege. What if you came up and you were dirt poor and you struggled your whole life and you were in recovery for being a drug addict? You had 5 kids you had to give up. You don't see the privilege, right? So it's hard for a lot of people, and then they get angry about it, and then you see these backlashes amongst different groups. I think that's a definite mistake to say, because you're white, you have this privilege, I don't, because not everyone's circumstances are the same.
All white people are racist.
We have just been put into this system designed to empower our white privilege. As a white person, I am super racist.
I know a lot of people.
You know, he says he's super racist. He's probably the least racist person you've ever met. He's been brainwashed to think this, and I'll tell you why. Because let's say he was 30, 20 years older than him. When I was growing up, that didn't exist, that you looked down upon yourself, you were self-deprecating. If anything, you thought, well, maybe I was a little harsh judging that person. You try to change it. You don't just say, I'm racist because I'm white. Because there's plenty of people that probably have done more for another culture, another race, because of any other reason. They're just good people. So you can't just say all white people are racist like this man said, because it just doesn't work. It's not that simple. It's not that cut and dry, I don't think.
Like to say, yes, I'm a racist, because that makes them feel like people know that I'm admitting my faults. But like, I think that's a weird like cop-out.
Have you experienced racism?
Oh, heck yeah. I grew up in the South.
I mean, it happens every day, really.
I've been slammed on cop cars. I've had, guns pulled out on me from police officers.
I'm followed through.
Now, growing up in the South, you'd hear people make comments, say in the 70s, teenage boys, they'd say the N-word. They didn't really mean much by it, beyond they'd say it because somebody said it. But the most racism I ever saw was in the Northeast. Growing up in the South, I thought, well, the South is racist. And I was in the Northeast, and I saw more racism. That was kind of a shocker. So you can't just say, I'm from the South. Of course I saw racism. Because people aren't static, right? Those people who are in the South now could have been from Connecticut a generation ago. It's not quite that easy in the 21st century.
Grocery store.
Got made fun of a lot.
Ching Chong, Ling Long, all this and that. Did you
You're the manager?
I had more experience than my coworker, and that person was getting paid more than I did.
So I was on the football field and someone had tackled me, and they were like, Asians don't play football. I was like, wait a second, you can't say things like that. That hurt a little bit, but I was like, little do you know, I got a little black in me. That's why I got 2 touchdowns already. Hold on.
Are you racist?
Am I racist?
Who isn't, to some extent?
I think everyone's racist.
I think everyone.
Everybody?
Everybody's racist. The human experience is to have difficulty stepping outside of yourself.
If something's different than you, sometimes you have to step back and get an idea, okay, is it safe? Say you're at a new place, right? Like your dog, it looks around, what's new here? So if you grew up in a culture where there's all white people, it would be different to be around someone that was black or Asian. But I know where I grew up, there was plenty of Africans, Americans, plenty of Asians, Hispanics. So it was kind of like I grew up with these people, so I didn't think much of it. I didn't think anything of it at all. So I guess it depends where you're from. But now with the internet, people are exposed to so much, it's hard to believe someone cannot have the experience, at least, through the culture, understand that you really can't judge a book by its cover. You can hate everybody equally or get jammed by everybody equally.
That I will always make mistakes.
I think I'm part of the society that enables racism.
We live in a white supremacist culture and society,
and we need to.
That's a big mistake, saying we live in a white supremacist culture. Because there's plenty, like I said before, plenty of people that are white that have struggled and feel like they've got no hand up, right? Example, let's say you were abused, dirt poor, kids taken away, you were a drug addict, you just struggle to get through life. If there was a white privilege, they're not feeling it. And those people get really angry about it. You've seen that in the last 4 years. I think that's been a mistake for people who truly want to make a difference. Take aside the politicians looking for votes, but people who truly want to matter and do something. I think saying that creates a big divide.
Actively work every day. So it's a continual process to unlearn things.
What do you do to actively change it?
Just gauge in each and every scenario that you go through.
Taking like a moment and trying to see if you're making this choice based on some unconscious biases.
Honestly, it even...
Well, you're not going to know if it's unconscious biases, right? But you meet somebody, you pass a judgment. Okay, how do they look? Oh, they're really tall, they're really short. They speak well. And if you never are open-minded enough to get to know them, if you're, say, in a work scenario, because of the way they look, well, maybe that's racism, some kind of ism, right? But if you get to know them, work with them, you like them, that's how I grew up. You just like them. You don't know where they're from. I grew up with all sorts of people. It could be Muslim, could be Jewish, could be atheist. I never really thought about it. I liked them. We never got into that kind of detail. Could be a black guy. I liked him. We were friends. Now, maybe the way I grew up, and these people now, they're really concerned about it. They're probably one of the least racist people I would meet, I would think. But they're really concerned about it. So I don't know if it's media-driven, or maybe they've got some deep-seated racism I'm not aware of. This gets complicated.
I used to be racist.
I was brought up racist.
I grew up in a phobic culture.
There was a period of time where I was like against interracial dating.
I remember being
very young, having like negative perceptions of African American people.
But I've met better people and opened myself up and I've healed.
I think that just exposing myself and being like, hey, like these people are actually really cool and I shouldn't be afraid of hanging out with them.
Are you ready?
I think what she just said is probably the best point I heard. Exposing yourself, being open-minded, and making your own decision.
It's your future. Make it amazing. Discover the power of a University of Arizona online degree. With 100+ programs, you'll never settle for anything less than amazing. Go to online.arizona.edu to apply.
Loudoun County students planned a walkout at Broad Run High School in response to a sexual assault that happened at Stonebridge High School. The attacker was then moved to Broad Run and has been charged with inappropriately touching another student. The students were heard chanting, "Loudoun County protects rapists." Parents of Loudoun County spoke at last night's school board meeting and carried signs with Superintendent Scott Ziegler's email on them, indicating he was aware of a sexual assault in a school bathroom, contrary to his statements in past meetings.
Mr. Ziegler, on May 28th, when he sent this email to the school board after he found out about the alleged sexual assault of a 14-year-old girl by a boy wearing a skirt in a girl's bathroom at Stonebridge High School. In the email, you seem more bothered by the fact that the girl's dad was at the school using profanity after his daughter had been allegedly raped than about the rape itself. Why is that, Mr. Ziegler? Also, why at the June school board meeting did you state that the district had no record of sexual assaults in bathrooms, knowing full well an alleged sexual assault had occurred a month prior? Did it have anything to do with the transgender policy that you were determined to enact that was opposed by the majority of the parents in our county? How convenient. Also, why was the same boy who was wearing a skirt in the first alleged rape allowed to be moved to a new school and allegedly attack another girl?
The case has become a local and national focal point over trans bathroom policies in Loudoun County schools. The father of the victim was even arrested at a Loudoun County school board meeting after his daughter was assaulted. But just this week, the teen suspect in the sexual assault case at Stonebridge was found guilty on all charges, or the guilty version for teens. The sheriff's office also confirmed the assault took place May 28th. They confirmed that they arrested a 14-year-old boy in the case. But there's much more to it, it turns out. And we'll talk about this with Democratic strategist Michael Starr Hopkins and former Nevada GOP state chairwoman and Republican strategist Amy Tarkanian. They join us now to discuss the new revelations. And so, Michael, I want to start with you. So this case was, there are two, I think, separate situations. I want to get your take on this. One is the Loudoun County School Board, which erred on the side of opacity, as all bureaucracies do. Just did not share information with the public in a way that created an extraordinary backlash among parents there. Then separately, the media treated this as if it was related to gender fluidity and the trans bathroom debate, suggesting that because there was some policy that was pushing in the direction of allowing trans girls into the girls' bathroom, that was why there was this sexual assault, and therefore we need a rollback of trans rights.
I mean, the media didn't really treat it that way because the media didn't really talk about it at all.
Well, a lot of it.
You mean conservative media?
Conservative media.
Okay.
Sure.
I still disagree, but yes.
Okay. Conservative media. So, Michael, it turns out that the assailant and the victim were dating and had planned to meet in this bathroom, which is as old a scenario as bathrooms themselves in high schools. And so it completely takes it out of the realm of the question of transgender rights. How do you feel like the media handled this? How do you feel like the Loudoun Board of Ed handled it?
Well, I'll start with the Loudoun Board of Education. I think every student has a right to feel safe in school and has a right to feel like they're being protected. And I think the same goes for the parents who are sending the students there. So I think a lack of information from Loudoun County contributed to some of this chaos. Now, when it comes to transgender bathrooms, it's become the new culture war. And I think it's the problem that we're seeing across the media, that people jump to these conclusions and then work their way backwards to prove the point that they wanted to ultimately prove in the first place. And I think this is a perfect example of that. people wanted to believe that this was an issue about transgender bathrooms and about the dangers of transgender individuals because that's what they wanted to believe, not because that's what the facts were. And so as we move forward, we've got to figure out a way to have mutual facts while also figuring out exactly what happened.
Yeah, so I will definitely disagree on this point, and Amy, I'm going to toss it to you. I think the reason that there was opacity is because Loudoun County, in the context, was defending the implementation of a policy and was trying to implement a policy that would have made this actually easier, this arrangement easier, given the sort of the trans restroom policy that would allow more trans people who identify as trans women to use women's restrooms, which makes this entire situation, sort of sanctions it and makes it much easier. So I don't agree that they're totally separate at all. What do you think about that, Amy?
Well, I'm going to agree a little bit with both of you in the manner of, if you are going to be a school district that implements this policy, then don't you think it would be wise to have maybe eyes and ears on the ground, maybe a little bit more close, because even heterosexual teens that, we all know we had hormonal situations going on at that stage in our life, and there is attraction and there are things that take place. So if that is a policy that you are going to have at your school, then maybe there should be a little bit more observation as to what's actually going on in your hallways. And I'm going to tell you, it's also a big problem. It's not just in Loudoun County, and I'm not talking about just rape overall, but there are so many school districts, and there's one here in particular in Nevada that actually hid racism and bullying, anti-Semitic situations, anti-LGBTQ harassment, until actually my husband and I spoke up against the principal, and come to find it that they actually swept everything underneath the rug because they were both being promoted. So you had the human resources person now being moved up to principal being moved up to superintendent. So they didn't want to address the situation and have anything bad on their record. Well, we took them to task and we ended up winning. And we found out that this had been going on for some time, and that there were just families who didn't know how to combat the situation and hold people accountable. And it is a problem even in Clark County, which is the largest county in Nevada. I know for a fact there was a troubled teen who was moved from private school to private school to private school until finally there were no more private schools, and he was arrested on multiple occasions, also threatened to rape one of my children, and then was finally put into a public school even though he had all these problems. So, mom and dad had some very good connections, and it's a problem about accountability.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think, and I'll let Ryan jump in, I think the problem is that the cover-up was in the service of passing a policy that did ultimately pass in August that protected the sort of trans bathroom use, and so they didn't want that out, and they made a lot of bad decisions, I think, in the service of keeping that quiet.
Yeah, Michael, it feels to me like a case of kind of bad faith assumptions breeding bad faith behavior. I think the Loudoun board probably started out assuming, okay, if we share all of the details of this situation, they're going to be twisted out of context, and then we're going to be attacked unfairly. And so then in response to that fear, they just clamp down and say, we're not going to share anything.
Yeah, I mean, they were certainly in a defensive posture, but I think a lot of that has to do with confirmation bias. And I don't mean this flippantly, but I'm not sure who are these guys that they think want to go to bathrooms next to girls just so that they can be in the bath. Like, my high school, the bathrooms were disgusting. Like, I don't know what high schools. But that happened
in this case.
Right. The only ones are the ones who are dating somebody and are planning to meet up, which they could do that in an empty classroom, which is where one of the other assaults happened. Like the first assault happened in an empty classroom. There's bleachers, there's closets, there's no shortage of alcoves in high schools.
Exactly.
But they're
not
not sanctioned.
But when you're talking about people going to the bathroom, transgender usage of bathrooms, like, it's not like most guys are just trying to go into a stall next to a woman and use the bathroom.
I don't think anyone says most guys are.
No, but I just feel like there's an oversimplification of something that is a very specific issue, and we're turning it into a culture war rather than having a conversation about
the culture war is being pushed. And I'm sorry to interrupt. It's being pushed by the people who are trying to change the policies. I think that's an important part here. I mean, it's if you sort of accept the label progressive, then you're the one that is sort of starting the culture war. The right is responding.
Well, I mean, it's the chicken before the egg, because, I mean, culture wars don't have to be that we're creating new policy. It could be protecting old establishment policies.
I mean, if that's a policy that you're going to implement, then you need to make sure that there are safety measures put into place
100%.
for all parties. And so the fact that this individual was easily able to enter and exit a bathroom just because he was wearing a skirt, when I would believe that most people probably who knew this individual knew just because he said gender fluid, that doesn't mean he gets to go into the women's bathroom. I would think gender fluid means you still get to go into your gender assigned, your sex. He would still have to go into the male bathroom. But obviously there was not enough observation, there was not enough eyes and ears, and then unfortunately, and I don't even know, are there cameras in the hallways to see that this actually, this person did enter and exit maybe on a regular basis, or was it just the few opportune times that they actually had sexual encounters together?
Well,
who knows?
And not to interrupt, but just my issue is not with the fact that we're having a conversation about the use of bathrooms by transgender individuals. It's that it's often the media uses an exception in a transgender case to make it seem as if transgender people are more likely to be predators, more likely to have sexual assaults. Like it is a bathroom. Like people are attempting to use the bathroom. Are there assaults in heterosexual bathrooms? Yes. Are there assaults in female bath? Like I just feel like we're mixing a issue that isn't actually
and as the number of people who identify as transgender and gender fluid rise, the number of people who identify as that and who are committing assaults will just rise naturally as a result of the population being higher. But at the same time, if your policy is the reverse and you say no, all trans girls must use the boys' room, you're then breeding potential violence there too. So it's not as if there is any way to avoid this question. The question has to be answered. People do have to go to the bathroom.
Right, and Loudoun County just didn't want to deal with the consequences of part of the answer. And I'm not saying that this is most people. I'm not saying that.
But I don't think it's a consequence of part of the answer. I think it's very easy for any dude to sneak into a girl's bathroom.
Oh, I don't dispute that. I just don't see there's a reason to sanction it.
Jeans and
it doesn't take a scientist to realize that is a very high possibility as a teenager with raging hormones, that is going to take place. I know transgender children, I know transgender adults, and I agree that they have no
It was like rubbing mouthwash on my armpits.
Yeah. Listen, you've smelled your deodorant, go smell.
Just some of the 5 in Kenosha that have closed down or moved to virtual learning in light of what's going on at the courthouse across the street with the protests and all of the media coverage and the fact that many students have to walk to school every day. So they just took that precautionary step. They said there was no imminent danger, but they wanted to make that precautionary step to move to virtual learning and close down in-person learning as up through today through Friday. So for now, we're live in Kenosha. Jason Calvi, Fox 6 News.
Jason, I'll ask you one follow-up question, if you don't mind. You mentioned the National Guard, and it's impossible not to remember the images that we saw in Kenosha in those days following the police shooting of Jacob Blake. Cars burned out, tear gas used in that park behind you and outside the courthouse with fencing up all over. A very different scene than what we're seeing right now in the wake of the verdict, just a mere moments, not even an hour since that verdict was read. Can you describe again what it would take for the governor to call in the National Guard, what it would take from local authorities to need that assistance, which is on standby, but it is currently not in Kenosha?
Right, so Sheriff Beth yesterday said that they didn't want to call up the National Guard as only really as a last resort if we saw what we saw last year where there was the looting and the violence and the fires, the car source, used car lot lit on fire, all those cars destroyed. That was last year, and Sheriff Beth says he doesn't want to call the National Guard unless it really is until it's a last resort. But they have been activated, so they are on standby. Governor Evers has activated 500 National Guard troops, so they are ready to go. They've been training. We've seen seen them in Sussex where they were practicing various maneuvers with batons and shields and things like that, crowd control maneuvers that they might have to use. But if they are called, they have certain responsibilities that they can and cannot do. One of them would be to protect what's called critical infrastructure. So that could be the courthouse, that could be various government buildings. They could protect those buildings. They could also assist police and the fire department. So we've seen the National Guard in the past when there's been unrest in places like Milwaukee, where we've seen the National Guard going out and helping, for example, with the fire department, just to secure their mission as they go out to put out fires and things like that. So those are the things that they may be doing, but in order for them to actually get to Kenosha, the local police here, the sheriff or the local police department would need to call them in to activate them here and to come here to Kenosha.
And we certainly hope that is not needed. We certainly hope things remain calm there. Jason Calvi, thank you very much for your reporting. We should mention Jacob Blake, the man himself, who eventually this sort of led to everything from the police shooting Jacob Blake. He did an exclusive interview with TMZ earlier this week. He was asking for peace as well, no matter what verdict was reached in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial.
We are within the hour of the not guilty verdict for Kyle Rittenhouse. We are now going to send things over to our colleagues Stephanie Grady, Ben Handelman, to take things over from here.
Appreciate it, guys. We're coming up on 1 o'clock in Kenosha County, Wisconsin. Not guilty on all counts. We heard it about 45 minutes ago. That's when the gasps were heard inside the courtroom.
It's taken 15 days for this entire Kyle Rittenhouse trial. On this fourth day of deliberations, though, about 24 hours later, we finally do have those verdicts. We weren't sure if it was going to end in a mistrial, a hung jury, because it had taken so long, Ben. And, we've been speaking with experts all week long as this trial has gone on. They weren't sure which way it would go. Nobody can guess except those 12 jurors. And tonight, we do know, in fact, that Kyle Rittenhouse, not guilty, going home with his family.
We have several crews in Kenosha right now. We do want to tell you we are awaiting a press conference. Now, it is interesting because just a couple days ago, the prosecutors came out with a statement saying they would not hold a press conference. So we do not know if we'll see them in front of a microphone. What we do know, we have a camera pointed at a microphone. We are expecting attorneys to show up there, and we do expect to hear from Kyle Rittenhouse's defense. Let's go out to Aaron Mabin. He is on the scene right outside the courthouse. He was there inside the building. Aaron, this did not play out as we expected. We expected this to get an hour notice once the verdict came in. And after all of that waiting, today this happened very quickly.
Yeah, Ben, I just want to let you guys know that I'm right outside of the courthouse right now, kind of in this park. We're near David Hancock, who is a spokesperson for the Rittenhouse family. So once he finishes up with another network, we are going to try to walk over to him and get a live interview with him, hoping to find out if he talked to Kyle Rittenhouse before the verdict came down or after the verdict came down. We just finished walking with the girlfriend and the great aunt of Anthony Huber, Susan Hughes and Hannah Giddings. They really didn't have much to say. There was a lot of emotion that they had inside of the courtroom. They took some time together, and then they were ushered out of the courthouse and walked to their car, just crushed by people locally and nationally as well. Let me just walk over.
Hi.
Hey. I'm with Fox Milwaukee. We're live now. Can I just borrow you really quick?
Yeah, of course.
I want to know, I'm live, by the way. Sorry. So I just want to let you know. David Hancock with the spokesperson for Kyle Rittenhouse and his family. You were sitting next to Wendy Rittenhouse as the verdict came in. What was her reaction? What was your reaction to that verdict?
One of relief. It's been a long road, and so we believe that was the right verdict, and we believe that the length of time was the jury being very careful in reading the instructions and looking over the evidence. But look, there's no spiking of football. Two people did lose their lives. There was a lot of things that infected this case, like politics, that sent it off the rails really early on. And so there are no winners. I mean, Kyle now gets to live his life as a free young man, an innocent young man, which he is. But at the end of the day, I mean, there are no winners. There's been I believe this is a inflection point for this country that we should try to bridge the divide right now, and we should try to come together, right? This is a moment that I think the country can use to get united, to try to get united, to have conversations, to sit across the table.
Have you talked to Kyle at all since the verdict came?
No. They left immediately. They went out the back door for security reasons. We wanted to get him off site. So,
what's next for him?
College. He can be an 18-year-old young man. He's studying prerequisites at Arizona State University and for nursing, and he's going to continue that. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure he can live as normal of a life moving forward as possible. But I think you're going to see some good things that come out of Kyle in the future, because he's a very, very pragmatic young man, right? That's been through a lot, and there's so many pieces of this case that touch every issue in modern day contemporary politics, right? But at the end of the day, this case was always about self-defense and nothing else. It wasn't about politics. It was not about race. It was a case about, did he defend himself when attacked? And he absolutely did, and thank God that the jury came to that conclusion. But look, I'll say it again. There are no winners in this, but this is an opportunity to have some discussions that I think should be had.
And David Hancock, Channel 12 in Milwaukee here, ABC. We're live as well, and I just want to introduce you to our viewers. You've been with the Rittenhouse family this whole time, and I was in the courtroom and I saw you, Wendy, really kind of held on to your arm tightly. What did you feel from her in that moment when they read the verdict?
Relief. I mean, a year and some odd months of just having her son be defamed, for lack of a better term, but just be assaulted with just untrue things and comments and assumptions. And she knows what's in Kyle's heart and what's in his head, as do I. Since I picked him up on November 20th, I know, and everybody in that room, all his family know the kind of person Kyle is. And so to get the verdict was just, I mean, I'm still trying to kind of reconcile it all in my head right now, but she knows her son is going to be coming home, and she knows her son will always be coming home now, right? So, and he's been judged to be innocent. He's not guilty of what has... So, I'm kind of bumbling too, but...
And
yeah.
Did you see his reaction at all? You almost could kind of hear him hit the table. His knees maybe buckling. Did you catch that at all?
It's been a long, it's been a long road. It's been a long road, and I'm proud of him. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of the family for staying strong. God bless Mark and Corey. The defense team just nailed it. But to that point, I think there's some issues that need to be looked at in terms of the prosecution and things that they did, what they attempted, and hopefully that will be looked into in the coming months.
It's always risky to put the defendant.
There was never a doubt.
He was always going to take the stand. Do you think that
wanted to take the stand? Sorry to cut you off, but he always wanted to take the stand because he wanted to tell his story, what he experienced, how he felt. There was never a doubt that he was going to take the stand.
Do you think that played a huge role in this verdict? His own words.
I would think yes. Because then you strip away everything else. You strip away everybody calling him a racist and a white supremacist, and you strip away everybody else trying to tell the world his intent, right? Why he was there, who he is, the kind of young man he wants to be in the future. You get rid of all of that, all right? And he tells his story, and he was always committed to doing that, period.
For people who don't know Kyle, you've got a chance to really know him. What do you want people to know about him right now?
What I think came out in court was the things that were being reported about him were not factual or true. Ever since the 25th of August of last year, he is a caring, he's an empathetic, and he's a civic-minded young man. And so I think you're going to see some good things out of Kyle coming up, because I was telling them he's very pragmatic about what has happened over the past year, right? So he's got some things to say, and I think you're going to be even more surprised by who Kyle actually is as more people get to know him better.
How was Kyle feeling before the verdict and then after the verdict?
Relieved. I mean, absolutely relieved, because this has been a long road. It's been a long road. But look, he is innocent and he can live a free life now. But there are no winners in this. This case has divided so many different parts of America that had nothing to do with the fact whether or not he defended himself when being attacked. That's what this case has always been about. Did he defend himself when he was attacked?
What did your team make of 4 days of deliberations?
We took it as this jury was being very cerebral, and they understood the gravity of this decision. I mean, you can't overlook just how serious this case was and is to this nation. Right now, at this time, with all these politics going, like, you can't overlook that. So I believe that they wanted to make sure that this was the right decision. And so, personally, I appreciated that. And I never felt one way or the other that it was going on for 2 or 3 or 4 days. That just told me that they were being thoughtful. So,
how do we repair the divisions in this community and the country that are so apparent to you that you just discussed?
Well, I think that's the question, right? I think that's the question for everybody. Yeah. But the problem is the question is never asked. Like what you just said, that's never what people are talking about. Nobody asks each other, how do we repair the divisions in this country? It just keeps going, right?
Will it take some time for him to get back to a normal life?
I think so.
Will there be a security concern for a while?
Of course.
What's next for him?
Of course, college.
Do you know where?
At Arizona State University. I mean, think about it. This case became so politically charged that when Kyle was on the stand and he said, I go to Arizona State University, I want to study nursing. And then people call up Arizona University and then they say, oh, he's lying on this. No. The happiest I've ever seen Kyle in the past year and 3 months, besides when he got his puppy Milo, was when he got his Arizona State student ID in the mail. Right? That was the happiest I've ever seen him. So it's things like that. It's that kind of vitriolic nonsense, right? That I think as a nation we are at an inflection point, and that stuff needs to be addressed here in the future.
Would you say he's looking for a fresh start, like a do-over with what happened?
By Fred.
Well,
he is almost in effect. He is having a fresh start. Like everything that has been said about him, everything that's been reported about him, that has just not been true. I mean, that's going to linger. All of that nonsense, that excuse me, but that garbage that was reported about who he is, right? That he's a white supremacist, that he's a militia member, that he's all this stuff. But that's going to follow him around. And everybody found out that was all not true. So he has a new normal, right? This is definitely going to be a new normal for him. And but I think you're going to see some amazing things out of young Kyle here in the next few years.
Is there anything you think Kyle wishes he would have done differently on that night?
I don't think Kyle wanted to be dragged through the mud over the past year and a half. So done differently in the sense of, does he wish he would have left? Well, he tried. He tried to leave. It's on video, right? That was not reported about. Like, I'm not vitriolic. I'm not angry. I'm very relieved at this decision, finally, right? But I think it's an issue when the fact that he tried to leave, when it's on video, all over YouTube. Nobody said, hey, this young man tried to leave this situation. He went up to the police and he tried to return back to that other car source.